Welcome back. If it's Tuesday, voters are voting somewhere. And today, Vice President J.D. Vance is among those voters, casting a ballot in his home state of Ohio, where primaries for governor and Senate are expected to set up key races for November, as Democrats look to flip Vance's former Senate seat. Meanwhile, voting is also underway in Indiana, where state legislative races are taking center stage as President Trump and his allies have devoted serious political capital in an attempt to oust 7 of the 8 Republican state senators running for re-election who defied the president by voting against a redistricting effort in the state late last year. Joining me now from St. John, Indiana, is NBC correspondent Shaquille Brewster, and breaking things down at the big board, Chief Data Analyst Steve Kornacki. Shaq, I'll start with you on the ground there talking to voters. What are they telling you, and is there any concern from Republicans about spending so much time trying to oust certain other Republicans?
You know, Monica, it's really a mixed bag based on the conversations that I've been having here. Some people have described it as essentially inside baseball to see this Republican on Republican fight. But for others, this is the reason. The redistricting effort is the reason why they came to the polls today. And you talk about that political capital that the president and his allies have exerted on this race. We're talking about $12 million in state Senate races across the state that have been spent on television ads. You compare that to last cycle, it was $500,000. So a lot of capital there that's turning into people coming out to vote on both sides of this issue. Listen to what some of them told me.
I already knew that there was going to be a candidate that would come out that would probably be supported by Trump because of the redistricting effort, and specifically because of that, I chose to vote against that candidate.
You wanted to see the state redistrict its congressional lines.
That's right. And my representative didn't think so. And I just came out here to show my disapproval and hopefully adjust it going forward.
Now, one thing to watch is that Indiana is effectively an open primary race. You don't declare a party until you go into the ballot box. So I did talk to 2 more liberal voters who picked up Republican ballots today to support the incumbent senator who helped block those new maps, Monica.
I know there has to be a method or something going on behind the lines that cannot be discussed because of the war.
I have a truck over there, and it's a diesel. It used to cost me $97 to fill it up. It costs me $217 now.
Oh, my God.
I'm paying $5.50, $5.60 a gallon, and which is ridiculous. But I can't blame any particular party for that.
And let's clarify this here. What you just heard from those folks are people telling me the top issues that were on their mind as they were coming to the polls. They were Republican voters. They told me that they're concerned about the economy. They're concerned about gas prices. But the interesting thing, and you heard it in that sound there, is that they did not say their concern about gas prices, even though they know how much more they're paying, is swaying their votes. These are folks who are voting in a Republican primary. They're part of that base. The big question will be what that does and how those more moderate swing voters, what they end up doing once we get closer to November, Monica.
Really interesting, Shaq Brewster. Thank you so much. I do want to turn to Steve Kornacki now. And so, okay, we just heard the view from voters. What are you watching for tonight in Indiana, Steve?
Yeah, well, I mean, you see them right here. You actually got 8 districts on the map that we've highlighted. 7 of them are the districts Shaq is talking about, Republican state senators who voted against that mid-decade redistricting plan. The 8th is an open seat where there is a Trump-backed candidate. But I think Shaq said it there. One of the things that I'm looking at here tonight as these results start coming in, and by the way, they're going to start coming in most of these districts at 6 o'clock Eastern, early poll closing in Indiana. But it is that question of an open primary, no party registration in Indiana, and are you going to see Democrats coming into these Republican primaries for the chance to vote against Trump's candidate? This is a story that we have been telling since Trump came back to the White House. In special elections, in lower turnout elections like this, Democratic voters, a segment of the Democratic base at least, has been extremely motivated by the idea of going out to vote and registering its objection, its disapproval with Trump. They have those opportunities here in a lot of these districts tonight. This is where Shaq was. This is the district where he was just reporting from. The first district here, this is essentially the suburbs of Chicago right here. It's a swing district. Trump won it, but he won it narrowly in 2024, meaning there's a lot of Democrats in this district. If they turn out, if they take Republican ballots, that could have helped the incumbent here. Dan Durnell is his name, also right here, this is just north of South Bend, sort of the Granger, Elkhart area here. Again, Trump won the district, not overwhelmingly, especially close to South Bend here. There are a lot of Democratic voters there. Again, is that going to be a factor in this primary? Another district where that could loom large. How about this right here? Jim Buck here is the Republican incumbent. He voted against that redistricting plan. This stretches from Kokomo all the way down to the fast-growing, higher-income Indianapolis suburbs of Hamilton County. And again, this portion of the district here has been trending away from Trump and the Republicans since Trump came on the scene. Again, are you going to see Democrats getting involved there? By the way, this district, Mike Pence, the former vice president, obviously estranged from Donald Trump, got involved here. He publicly endorsed Buck in this district. You also got a district right here, Purdue University, West Lafayette, Indiana. Again, this at least corner of the district I've got right here, there's a lot of Democrats there. So that's something we're going to be looking for. Are the Democrats a factor in this? The Democrats have certainly had no hesitation to vote in other special elections and primaries that we've been tracking for the last year plus. Is it going to be a story in this race tonight? And also, is that Trump base? I'm highlighting areas where there's Democrats here. A lot of rural, small town areas here where Trump was winning by 30, 40, 50 points in the general election in 2024. Something we haven't seen since Trump came back to the White House is that core Trump base turning out in big numbers when Trump's not on the ballot in the elections that have taken place since he came back to the White House. Does his involvement, though, his direct, unusual involvement in these races, lead to much bigger turnout in those areas? So it's sort of looking for where's the turnout coming from here? Are we seeing it surprisingly high from Democratic areas? Are we seeing it surprisingly high from rural, small-town Trump areas? Is it about the same in both? That's going to be what we're looking at as these votes start to come in.
It's going to be such an interesting test of the so-called revenge tour. And, Steve, I know we're also watching a Michigan state legislature race, right, to replace now Democratic Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet's seat. What could the outcome there tell us about that?
Yeah, let's head over here, sort of the mitten of Michigan here, Bay City, Saginaw. Look, this is one where if the Republicans were to win this, it would flip it. This is a state Senate seat in Michigan. It would actually move the Republicans into a tie in that chamber. Now, the Democrats would break the tie with the lieutenant governor. But this is one of those races, what I was just talking about here. This is as you said, this was a seat held by Democrats, now a special election. This is the recipe where Democrats have been running up the score since Trump came back to the White House. A special election on an odd date in the spring, not a high turnout affair. We have seen in elections like this since Trump came back to the White House just a much more motivated Democratic base than a Republican base. The Democrats have been really overperforming in elections like this. So I would certainly say you'd make the Democrat the big favorite in this just based on everything since Trump came back to the White House. Republicans would love to be able to get this win, to crow about that. But they would have to do something here in this race tonight that they really haven't done since Trump came back to the White House.
Steve Kornacki, thank you for all of that. And, of course, tune in tonight for the latest edition of Steve Kornacki Cam, breaking down the latest election results as they come in. It all kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern on NBCNews.com.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.